Welcome to Classical Chats. I'm Tiffany. Today, I'm excited because as a pianist, well, I don't want to say all pianists are like this. Myself, exclusively, I don't know a lot of things, and that includes not knowing other instruments like the oboe. So I'm very excited to be learning about the oboe from high school student Ellen Dahlström. I actually just found her on Instagram. I thought, she's very proactive on Instagram, showing her practicing, and she seems to have a sense of humor because she also says that Shostakovich is her dead husband. And so we're going to talk about the oboe, learn something about the oboe because I don't know anything about the oboe. And then we're going to talk about how in the world she is running this talent agency for her community to get gigs for other young musicians. Again, she's only 18 in high school, so I definitely was not that smart and ambitious when I was in high school, so very inspiring to hear about that. And then we're going to end with a talk about Shostakovich. Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
I'm laughing because technical issues just run my
Okay.
life. So, nice to meet you. I feel like I know you, which is really weird, but
Yeah.
I
I
just,
feel, yeah.
I mean, you've watched my videos for a lot more than I have known your existence, but what I've known so far, very inspiring. So I'm excited to talk to you, or at least talk to you again, and share your story with the audience. So, first question I ask every single guest is, how did your journey with classical music start?
So I come from a musical family. My dad is a percussionist and my grandmother is a choir director slash pianist.
Learning something?
So yeah. Um,
Ah,
so
you must have
I,
very good rhythm.
yes, well, actually I don't actually,
That's
but,
ironic.
but it's like fine, it's fine. I began playing when I was 4. My parents enrolled me in violin lessons. My teacher moved away, so we stopped violin lessons after that. But then I started piano, and I played piano. So this is when I lived in Ohio. So I played piano for until I moved to Massachusetts. There was no local piano teacher in Massachusetts. So, when I was 9, I was offered, well, we were all given the opportunity to play in the band. We were all given the opportunity to choose an instrument. I was torn between the French horn and the flute. I then figured I looked at the list again of the instruments, and I asked my dad, "What's an oboe?" So we pulled up a recording of John Ferrillo of the Boston Symphony playing Shostakovich 5, third movement oboe solo with all-star orchestra. And then that got me like, I was like, oh my goodness, that's so cool. So I didn't know this recording at the time. Like I didn't know who Shostakovich was. So like later on, I went back and looked and I
Mm.
found this recording, Shostakovich. Um, and then this is I went to NEC prep and I did my first summer program in 2016 with the Festival Youth Orchestra, and that was a super eye-opening experience for me, and I grew so much as a musician from it, and it was really fun. And I met a bunch of amazing people, and my playing grew from like here to like here.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And then I moved to South Florida, and when I got to high school, I auditioned for this art school called Dreyfus School of the Arts in my county. And what's really cool about it is that it's not like a like a private institution or anything. It's a public school, but you have to audition to get into the school. And from there, I have gotten so many amazing opportunities to perform and to play and to collaborate with a bunch of incredible like musicians. And yeah, it's just it's being able to go to an arts high school is really unique. Um, and like even though a lot of people at my school are like mostly focused on academics, everyone still has like a love for music or whatever art area they're a part of.
Mm.
So
So that
Yeah.
shows that you must be pursuing music professionally, right? Since you went to
Yes.
art school.
Yes.
Do you remember when you decided that you would be an oboist for your profession? You never looked back to like the violin, the piano, or the flutes or French horn?
It was when I was at NEC and I was like, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is so much fun. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. Like before then, I uh dabbled in a lot. I dabbled in writing books as
Hmm.
a little fourth grader. They were not that good, but
I wrote things too.
um
I found old writings called Tom's Family when I was like 8 or 9. Yeah, I had that phase.
oh, that's so cute. Oh my goodness. I love that.
Yeah,
Um
be trying to
but
learn
yeah,
English.
I mean, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
I don't know what I was doing, to be honest. I like made up stories apparently about Tom.
It's just your average like American name
I guess I don't know.
or English. I think that's an English name. But
I was in Hong Kong when I had those stories. Anyway, back to you.
um
You dabbled.
so yeah, I dabbled in a bunch of things and then I kind of like when I landed on oboe, everything just clicked and I knew that I wanted to pursue music. I'm not 100% that I will like I mean, I want to conduct. Like, I would love to conduct
Really?
an orchestra. Yeah.
Ah,
So, I mean, playing the oboe, like, will ultimately, like, be my consistency throughout my career and the rest of my life. But I
hmm.
would love to conduct an orchestras someday because I think that would be there's so many like ideas that I have that I just like want to convey through an orchestra, like with composers like Brahms, Tchaikovsky, Shostakovich, Bruckner. Like just
That's
like
really
totally
ambitious, Bruckner. I did not understand. I still don't quite understand Bruckner symphonies. They take certain maturity and attention span that I've yet to acquire. But that makes sense because previously, that no one has heard of between our conversation, you mentioned that you feel like you're a leader, right? And
yes.
you were talking about how you and your friend started an agency for your other musician friends to find opportunities. So that definitely takes a certain leadership skill to embark on something like this. When I was your age, I was clueless and did not have any of those ambitious ideas. So how did that start?
I wanted to kind of give myself and other people the opportunity to earn money through performing as a student musician because if you're exposed to that, then you could potentially think to yourself, I can earn money doing this. So, because I know some people who don't want to pursue music because they don't think that they'll be able to earn like an income to live on.
Right,
And
starving artist.
obviously, exactly, yeah. So I just like want want my peers to experience that they can earn money. But also another component of it is the outreach, which we go out into the community around our county, Palm Beach County, and we expose people to classical music. And we give student musicians the opportunity to play for all kinds of people from everywhere. So that and jazz. We also have like jazz musicians play too, because
Hmm.
for a lot of events, a lot of people do like to have jazz musicians because the music can generally be more like up tempo. Not that classical music can, but
Yeah,
I know
well,
nothing about jazz though. So
I know very little, though I do admire on the side. I'm like the enthusiastic, yay, on the sideline. Like I'm not part of jazz, but definitely something I admire. Don't have the improvisatory freedom kind of personality to
ditto.
play jazz. Yeah, we're quite similar. I'm learning more and more now that we're talking for what, the second hour, second. I don't even know anymore. Um, so that's amazing though because when I was your age, or people generally like to, I think in general, a human nature thing, they want to do things for themselves and they want to, especially at around your age, high school, end of high school, it's like what's next. I should be deciding on my career, and everyone just is very focused, I find, on their career goals and trying to satisfy whatever their wishes are to pursue the career that they want. And it's very rare that someone so young, before they even have a professional career, to be thinking of others. And so I think that's really heartwarming. So I'm very glad to have met you randomly on Instagram.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's a bit of like it can get stressful at times, definitely, because I manage all of the groups that like perform for things. So I
How many
get
artists do you have or groups do you manage?
so on my roster, I have enough people for two string quartets, two jazz combos, but the instruments are interchangeable, and then I have one woodwind quintet, one brass quintet, and then musicians are interchangeable. So a lot of times, uh, I will, if I can't find anyone else, I will end up playing in like in an oboe quartet setting with a viola, a cello, and a violin. So, and sometimes when or music starved, I will read violin parts. So like on Eine kleine Nachtmusik, I'll read the violin one part.
Mm.
So
But that wow. I don't know how you do it at all. And I mean it takes a very proactive person, and it seems like you are, to be finding opportunities for others, because it's such a common thing to think, oh, I don't know how to get opportunities, especially at a young as a young musician. So yeah, I guess you must be really proactive at reaching out to people.
yeah, that is one of the biggest parts of it because I do have to in order to get gigs for people, I have to reach out. I am an intern with I well, I'm there's only one of me. I'm the intern with the Palm Beach Symphony, the student intern. So, a lot of times if people need musicians for something, they'll like they'll come to me because a few things about like in my my area, uh, people who are self-proclaimed professionals tend to not play in like the gig setting as well as like the student musicians do.
Mm.
Like no shame or anything on them. I feel like since we're student musicians, we are all like aspiring to professional careers and we're all practicing. We're just trying to get
The recognition and
yeah.
yeah.
So and people like the musicians that play at the events. So yeah, it's fun. It's a really fun experience too, because I love being able to play and like, because sometimes there's some of the people since I'm always like doing like I'm always practicing or I'm doing homework or
Mhm.
something. I'm always doing it's really fun to be able to just rehearse with people and just like have fun rehearsing with with like my friends, my peers.
Yeah, that sounds
So,
great when you all just unite together in one music goal. It's can be a lot of fun.
yeah.
So, you were mentioning about how there's like the professional musicians, and then there's the group of you young musicians trying to get gigs and really get the recognition. And so, hopefully, Together with Classical can bridge the gap a bit more, so there isn't like you are a professional and you are just a student. Like I don't really like that stigma and that label. And if someone still trying to build her career, it's I can still feel that uh whatever it is, the system or just something a bit weird. So teach me something, since I don't know anything about the oboe.
Okay.
What
So,
would you like me to know about the oboe? I think you mentioned something about scales, but any
there's a
like
I feel
a
like
crash course in 5 minutes. What can I learn about the oboe?
okay, if anything, you need to learn about the reeds. The reeds are the most important part of playing the oboe. I make my reeds as well as, I mean, if you're a professional, you should be making your own reeds. Um,
How do you make them?
um, so you, I don't have a like a dead reed, but basically this cork down here. this has a little bit of metal sticking out, like up to the height, up almost to the height of the string,
Hmm.
the top of the string. So, what you would do is take a piece of cane, which is this. Cane looks kind of like this.
Mm.
And so you take it and then you fold it over the staple. And then you would, since you're folding it over, since this is like attached, like where my fingertips are, it's attached, you would cut it, and then you would, well, before you cut it or anything, you would wrap it so that the cane stays in place. Then you would cut the tip off, and then you would, work with a reed knife. You would scrape off. Good. You would like scrape off. I'm not gonna scrape too much off since I just finished this read, but you would scrape off all the cane that's not needed, so that there's four major components. There's little components within the components, but the four major ones are: the top is the tip, right here is the heart in this little middle section. Down here is the back. Then all through the middle is the spine.
Mm.
So this every single part of this is important, and yeah, so that's the most important part about the oboe. And then if you have a good reed, then you can play the oboe. This reed isn't good though, so
What makes a
um
good read?
if it can crow an octave, usually C or C sharp, that's based on personal preference. Um, so this is crowing. Well, I crowed it while I was while we were talking earlier. It
Yeah.
was crowing a fifth, and so I need to do some major adjusting on it. But I also accidentally took out some of the spine in the heart, which is one of the most important sections for it to be stable.
Sounds
But I
like
was just
that's their names, heart and the
yeah,
spine, for humans too.
yeah, yeah, pretty much actually, yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
I guess that's why it's named like that.
exactly.
Makes sense.
So, but I like to watch like Netflix while I'm doing it. Um, so I got distracted by Blacklist, which is a show on Netflix. And then I accidentally took out part of the spine.
Uh,
So
you killed
it's like, yeah, so it's
killed
like
something.
really pretty much. It's
How
like really
dare you?
badly unstable. But I'm also a student musician and I'm broke and I don't have money for reeds or cane.
Are they really
So,
expensive?
oh yeah, I forgot about that. The cost. It's if you buy like a made reed, usually you can get a good one for 25 to $30, but that's one reed. As an oboist, you're gonna want to have a case. Um, well,
So you
this
need
isn't really
to
full, but
like
like full
constantly
reed.
change?
Um, yeah, so a reed will generally last for about a week of playing, whether it's like whether you're playing it or not. Like it won't last for a week. It'll last for a week of you playing on it. So even if you take a
Right.
day, like generally. Um,
Interesting. Why like does it crack? It's like dummies. This is like oboe for dummies and I'm the dummy. What about it that makes it
so
worn out?
sometimes it can be like a human error in breaking it, but over time, when you're constantly blowing through it, and let's say you have rehearsal like right after lunch or something, you don't have time to brush your teeth in between lunch and rehearsal, like me, because I go to school and it's weird to brush my teeth in school. um, you want to brush your teeth before a concert, though. Always do that. Um,
Did not know that.
like all the food or like all the particles and like your saliva and stuff, they can go into the it sounds really gross. Um, and it does
It
gross
makes
as
it
it
makes
sounds.
sense though. I guess the chemical kind of makes the
Yeah,
properties
and
change.
it's slowly like it can either it can slowly like erode on the inside of the reed or make it dirty and just like waver the sound. One of my old teachers taught me a trick where you use a pipe cleaner, like a very small pipe cleaner. You can like draw it through and you can let
So it's
through the
like
reed because
cleaning a straw.
yeah. But also, we're as oboists, we're expected to get like I think it's 20 gallons of air into this.
Wow.
Yeah. so it's a tiny hole.
Yeah.
That's very small.
Jeez. Now I understand why it's so high, the pitch. Yeah, now it makes sense.
Yeah. And then when you like put it into the oboe, it expands, and then as you press keys down on the oboe, it makes the tube longer, which makes it lower. But since I'm not pressing on any keys, or I'm gonna press on this key for right now, this first one, which is I call it the B key, because that's the note it makes it play.
Hmm.
It's only the tube is only this long because because that's the only key that's being pressed down. As you press more keys down, now the tube is this long. Now the tube is this long when you press all these. Now it's when you press down to the low B flat, when you have this vent down, the tube is this long. So
Now
that's
I understand. That was a really good crash course.
yeah. So that's
But
kind
you're
of
gonna play something.
I mean I can. I know
I don't
what
know.
I
You
should
were
play.
like about to do something, and then I talked out of excitement. But
I think you'll know what this is. No, now I'm smiling. I can't smile while I play.
you have to be grumpy.
No. Oh no. Okay. Oh, I forgot the rest of it, but
I'm playing
yes.
my. Okay, usually it's my other hand, but Chopin waltz.
Yes.
That was nice.
I thought you would appreciate that.
I did. Thank you. That was so fun. I learned a lot about the oboe. I don't know if it's just me. It probably is just me, but I seriously don't know so many things aside from those keys. And even these keys, I would not be able to explain as
That's the
well as
joy
you
of
did
living.
about. Sorry?
That's the joy of living though, not knowing and then like discovering things.
Yes, but then how many years do you live your life cluelessly? I felt like
I mean, you don't
time to learn. That's maybe
I
my
mean,
motto for this year. Learn something.
yes. Learn about the oboe. Oh, there's so much like really interesting and really beautiful oboe repertoire or oboe and piano repertoire. That's um that's really like fun and that's really beautiful. Like a lot of Cali Voda stuff. Well, there's this one piece by Cali Voda called Morceau de Salon, and it's like kind of like a showpiece for like duet for oboe and piano. And then the Schumann romances for oboe and piano.
Speaking of repertoire, Shostakovich. We cannot end this chat without talking about your beloved. So,
Exactly. My dead husband.
yes, your dead husband. I thought you had a sense of humor when you when I saw your Instagram bio. So, explain to me why Shostakovich, because it's not the most famous classical composer like Mozart that any non-musician would probably know. So, why Shostakovich first?
So one, Shostakovich's is the composer who inspired me to play the oboe because of his Fifth Symphony.
Yeah.
Um, two, Shostakovich, his background and his story is just very unique because he was creating music in an era in a location where music was very censored, but he was still able to put a lot of his soul into it, which I thought like when I was learning about him, I thought it was very, very interesting. Um, and his Seventh Symphony, which is my favorite symphony, was written during World War II, during the Siege of Leningrad, aka St. Petersburg today. And the background, which I earlier did like should I do like that music analysis?
Well, you only have 10 minutes, right, until your oboe lesson, so it's up to you.
Okay. I'll like do a little bit. So like the beginning of his Seventh Symphony is really big and grandiose and beautiful, and it shows like the city of Leningrad. Then you get the siege of Leningrad. I'm talking about the first movement right now. I'm not going to talk about the other ones. The first so you get the siege, and then you get the snare drum coming like that digga digga da digga digga da digga 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 da. So you get that, and it slowly grows, adding more and more people to the orchestra with the melody like da 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 da. Which it's a really simple and really like foreshadowing melody. Then it goes into like minor key and stuff, and it's really it's so interesting that when you know the background of the siege and how the whole city is blocked off, and then there's bombings, and there's it's when German troops like come in, it's just really interesting, and it's like scary and sad for all the people. I mean, Shostakovich wasn't in there at the time because he was protected by the government because he was like a really famous person. Um, so I just think it's so interesting because
Yeah.
to hear
No,
the background.
I remember I took a class at Columbia about nationalism in music, and we probably did talk about the Seventh Symphony. It might be a different symphony, but I do remember that the history of those pieces were so much integrated into his pieces, and you could hear the symbolism of all the musical ideas coming in, and it really grabs you once you're in it. You're really in the drama of the music, and it's very special and unique to Shostakovich. So, what are some pieces that you would recommend to those? I mean, not all of his music is this dark and yeah, this dark. So maybe some other pieces that if one were to come into Shostakovich, you don't want to like scare them with such a
Yeah.
heavy topic and heavy piece of music. So yeah, what are some other if you were to introduce
So
someone who doesn't know Shostakovich?
so the first piece I would recommend is very contrasting to his general style, which I would describe his general style as like abrupt and like brisk. Um, this piece is very like flowing. It's his Fugue for Piano number 7. If
Don't
someone ever, it's so beautiful, and I highly recommend anyone listens to it. I forget the last name of this pianist, but I think his first name is Alexei. And that's one of my favorite recordings of it. So if you look up like piano or Fugue number 7, Alexei, Shostakovich, Alexei, then I'm sure you could find it. And it's really beautiful. Another piece I would recommend is his Piano Concerto number 2, which other than his Symphony number 7 is my favorite piece of his music. It
Mm.
was written for his son Maxim, who is like a very playful little kid, which you can definitely hear in the first movement, because like it starts with the bassoon, just going like dun 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 dun, dun, and then it like goes into like the times where Maxim is a troublemaker,
Wow.
or when like as he like grows up, and it's really sweet. It's really comforting to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me that probably Shostakovich, what makes him very unique is his storytelling, maybe. So whether it's
Definitely.
about his son or about the war, the fact that you can follow through a narrative. I mean, there are of course other composers who can do this, but I don't know, somehow the drama of Shostakovich. I remember even though I, to be honest, don't share the same exact passion and the expertise that you have on Shostakovich, but I still remember it really speaking to me directly to my relatively ignorant mind about Shostakovich. So thank you for your recommendations.
Of course.
But do you want
Um,
to end on something to recommend to you to other young musicians or musicians in general about scales?
sc- scales.
Which is so funny because I it's less funny or less interesting perhaps for the audience to see my first reaction, but I did not know that we had like a mutual kind of contact person that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's this cellist named Guy Johnston who's an assistant professor at Eastman for cello. He
Yeah.
came to my school um, with like Arno Sussman and Ben Bielman, and I should have looked this up. I forgot the pianist's name. Um, but they were playing chamber music, and afterwards, me and a couple of my friends decided that it would be a good idea to skip sixth period, our next class. And it was a good idea, by the way, to talk to them.
I've done that too.
And
I have skipped certain classes for certain things that I
that's
liked.
you just gotta
Not
do what you have to
recommending,
do.
but sometimes good.
Like off the record, but no, just kidding. Um, but
But that's
I
so cool that Because I, for those who don't know or don't remember, I actually performed with Guy and also Arnold. Arnold more recently in the Schumann concert, but I met Guy 2 summers ago. Yes, 2 summers ago, and we played some Clara Schumann together, and also probably some other pieces. But he's a really nice guy.
It's so interesting, like, what a small world, like, everything and this is. 'Cause I feel like everyone knows someone who knows everyone.
Oh,
So,
circle! It's scary,
yeah,
but also very interesting in that way. It's like so small. Everyone knows someone, who then knows someone who knows you or knows someone. So
exactly. It's really interesting.
yeah,
But,
scale.
scales. So I was asking we were asking Guy like, what we should focus on when we're practicing. And he said scales. Scales. And when I started practicing my scales consistently every single day, because when I was in Massachusetts, I didn't know what scales were. I didn't even know what scales were. I like we only played like B flat major scales in band, but I didn't know that that was like a scale. I thought he's just like play the B flat major sequence.
Well, I mean, that's the concept of what scales is. So,
Pretty much. But when I moved to Florida, I had to learn my scales, and I did not know what scales were. So I was like kind of thrown into that. Like I needed to learn scales. And when we met Guy, and like hearing someone who sounded so incredible and just was just sawing away on his cello, like I started practicing scales, and then um that really like opened up a lot of things for me because I started practicing concerto that I've been working on for the past 2 weeks now. Um, when I was able to play it, I was able to play because it's full of scales. I was able to play it flawlessly when I like and when usually my fingers would not be super smooth. I was able to play with super consistent smooth fingerings.
oh.
So
That actually reminded me because I remember I was talking about or asking Jan Vogler, cellist, also about how they approach music, whether they approach it like technically or musically first, or if there's a separation. And he actually liked also really honing down on your technical skills. So I guess that includes scales. So I guess I wonder if it's like a cellist thing now. But anyway, that's great that he inspired you and changed your and improved your playing so much just with the recommendation of scales. Although personally, I don't do much scales, so maybe I should. Anyway, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I had a lot of fun getting to know Ellen and getting to know the oboe, which now I know a little bit more. And it was so much fun to learn in this little crash course. Maybe this will be a regular segment on Classical Chats. Anyway, I've been constantly amazed by just how inspiring everyone's stories have been. And so I hope you check out our other episodes of Classical Chats, whether you're an amateur or a professional or anything in between or outside of that. All of you have such amazing stories, so thank you so much for supporting, for listening, for being part of Together with Classical. It's been wonderful, so thank you.